A volcano warning has been issued for the United States, and we are also having emergency meetings happening with top officials for earthquake forecasting and prediction, and they are worried that up to 6 or 7 different volcanoes could be erupting all at once. So we're going to get into all this. Let's dive right into the details here. All right. A volcano notice has been put out for Hawaii. This just came out today, Tuesday, August 5th. From the USGS, it says USGS volcano notice. The Kilauea Volcano is now starting to erupt, and a warning has been issued for Hawaii. And this is the quote big island of Hawaii. A lot of people actually live here, and this volcano is becoming extremely active. It says the onset of sporadic precursor activity associated with episode 30 of the Halemaʻimaʻoa eruption began at 5:51 HS Standard Time, Hawaiian Standard Time on August 4, 2025. Strong glow and rare spattering were visible in the north vent overnight, but there have been no additional vent overflows. This morning, lava is 15 to 30 feet below the top of the vent. Low-level seismic tremor and degassing at the summit continues. Summit tilt meter data has fluctuated over the past several days and has recorded virtually no net inflation since Friday evening, August 1st. Model suggests that episode 30 sustained lava fountaining may start between now and Thursday if the slow inflation recorded over the past 2 to 3 days continues. So they're reporting that there's a lot of activity, and we could see something happen over the next few days here. All right, so just make sure you're on high alert if you are on Hawaii's big island. And this is just evidence that we are seeing a lot more volcanic activity around the world. There's also emergency meetings being held in Russia right now by top officials, and they are worried because there's potentially 7 different volcanoes that are on the verge of erupting and have a lot of activity. So we have the Kamchatka Volcano. This is a ongoing eruption, and the ash plumes are currently reaching 8 kilometers. Also, the Krashenikov volcano is erupting currently. It's still ongoing, and we're seeing plumes up to 8 kilometers. The Klambalny volcano has started increased seismic activity. Also, the Mutnovsky volcano shows that there's a thermal anomaly, and visiting the volcano is not recommended. And this is coming from the Russian Expert Council on Earthquake Forecasting, Seismic Hazard, and Risk Assessment. They held this emergency meeting to discuss seismic and volcanic activity in the Kamchatka area. All right. So scientists are worried that these volcanoes are becoming increasingly active, and they're warning people to stay away 10 kilometers away from any of these volcanoes. All right. Also, the Avachinsky volcano is showing significant signs of activation. The Bezimiany volcano is showing signs of activation. The Karamsky volcano and the Mutnovsky, like I mentioned before. All right. So these are all in the Kamchatka Peninsula here, and this is not far from Alaska at all. Okay, the Aleutian Islands almost go all the way over to this part of Russia. It's very close. The islands for Alaska, they get very close to Russia over there. And there's actually a lot of increased activity happening in the Aleutian Islands. There's volcanic warnings being issued. In the Aleutian Islands, it's very low populated, but there is activity there. All right. So you can see here these earthquakes that are happening. All right, these clusters are still going on in Russia. These aftershocks are going to continue for a while, and it's increasing volcanic activity in 7 different volcanoes in this region. Absolutely insane. We're also seeing a 5.1 that happened in the Aleutian Islands in Alaska, 3.5 in Alaska, 3.1 in Alaska, 3.1 again. And we also had another rare 2.7 that happened in Hillsdale, New Jersey, which is miles from New York City. This is right on the border of New Jersey and New York. And we also had, this is another one. So we had a earthquake yesterday in New York too, and people felt it. And now we're having another earthquake, a 2.7 happen in New York and New Jersey, right? So we're getting these anomalies across the board. Volcanic anomalies, seismic activity anomalies, and look what's happening down here as well really quick. There's been a lot of earthquake activity in the Caribbean, right? Look at this 5.7 that hit the Dominican Republic, 3.9 hitting Haiti, 2.6, 2.8 in Puerto Rico, 4.4. And they actually can have pretty big and devastating earthquakes in this area, and they have in recent history in places like Haiti. Also, we're seeing some pressure being released in California. So a 3.5 has hit Rialto, California, a 3.1 in Niland, California, and a 3.1 in Brawley. So right on the border with Mexico down here. So this seismic activity from Russia is, the pressure is transferring and it's being released in other parts of the world and through the Pacific Rim. We're also getting earthquake activity in Japan. A 5.0 has hit Amagi, Japan, on top of a 4.5, all in the past couple days. All right, these are actually both today, 8.5. So earthquake activity is increasing. Russian officials are holding emergency meetings to deal with the increased volcanic activity here. And if we did see, we're already seeing flight traffic being affected in this part of the world from the amount of ash that's being released, and these volcanic eruptions are continuous right now for the Krashenikov volcano and the Kluchevsky. They're both still erupting, right? So this is an ongoing issue, still releasing ash and SO2 and lots of other things into the air that can potentially affect weather patterns, can affect flight patterns. They've already put out alerts to airmen, NOTAMs for these things. And if we have 6 or 7 of these volcanoes all erupt at once, it's going to be devastating, right? It could affect commerce and travel to places like Alaska and Japan. Look how close they are here, all right? Japan is right here, and Alaska is right here too. So air travel could be affected, and also sea travel, all right? So just make sure you're prepared, make sure you're stocked up to handle things for a few weeks, and make sure you're ready, because these big earthquakes, a lot of times utilities go out, transportation goes out. There's also a dam that has collapsed in the Kamchatka part of Russia, right? And a river is now overflowing, all right? And it's washing out the road, and they're worried that it's going to completely wash out and trap people in certain areas that are being affected still. All right, so that's something else you have to think about, is you could be trapped, roads could be destroyed, roads could be washed out from shifts in the land and the way the water is going to shift after a big earthquake or volcanic event. And the power could also be out too. Utilities, things like this could be affected, could be destroyed. And just make sure you have some type of backup to stay in your home for a while. All right, these people are already going on a week dealing with this. This big earthquake happened on July 30th, and it's already been a week since it happened, and they're still dealing with this. The situation has not gotten better. They're still having aftershocks, and they're now holding emergency meetings for these volcanoes. You can see here, massive, here's some more information on it. Massive volcanic eruptions in Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula are extremely rare, say scientists. It says here the simultaneous activity of 6 volcanoes on Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula is a highly unusual phenomenon, which scientists are calling a parade of eruptions, reported Russia's state-owned TASS news agency. Quote, according to our data, the last time such widespread volcanic activity occurred in Kamchatka was 1737. Following a magnitude 9 earthquake. This is what Alexei Ozerov, director of the Institute of Volcanology and Seismology of the Far Eastern branch of the Russian Academy of Scientists, was quoted by the TASS news agency. So all these scientists, all these different branches of government are getting together and holding this emergency meeting here. And it says here, Ozerov said the powerful seismic event on July 30th may have reawakened the region's, quote, sleeping giants. Also, the head of volcanology station in the village of Kluichi said that he had not seen such widespread volcanic activity in his 5 decades of work in the area, according to the news agency. Quote, on Kreshninikov volcano, both summit and central eruptions have begun simultaneously, which may indicate intense internal seismic processes. As for the Kamchatka volcano, I last worked on it in 1979. While it's been quiet for decades, it should not be considered extinct. This is what the head of these agencies are saying. So they are worried. They are warning people to stay away. It says here, he noted that the previous eruption of the Kreshninikov likely occurred in the 15th century and is known only from layers of volcanic ash. Quote, of course, no one was monitoring it in the 1400s, so we can say that today we are witnessing truly unique natural phenomenon. And it says here, as of Sunday, 6 volcanoes are showing active signs: the Avachinsky, the Kluchevsky, the Bizymiany, the Kamchatka, the Kereminsky, and most recently the Kreshninikov, which is located on the Krotonatsky Nature Reserve. All right, this is a mouthful here, but I'm trying to get it all out for you. This information here. It says at the Kluchevsky volcano, summit eruptions have intensified, accompanied by strombolian activity, ash emissions, and lava flows. The Kereminsky volcano is continuing its summit eruption, while the Bizymiany is experiencing a weak, extrusive, explosive phase with minor ash emissions. Seismic activity is being recorded at Kamchatka volcano, raising the risk of an explosive eruption, with possible ash clouds reaching an altitude of up to 6 kilometers. It says authorities are warning residents and visitors to stay away from active volcanoes. So this is big, guys. They're saying they've never seen this happen. This guy said he's been here 50 years. He's never seen this. Something's happening. A reawakening is happening. These are ancient volcanoes that are now becoming active. And I think we're going to see more of this in places like Alaska, like Mount Spur, potentially. And also let's check on places like Mount Rainier as well, too. All right, so this is the Mount Rainier Volcano Observatory for the Cascade Mountains. And you can see here we're actually getting earthquake activity at Mount Rainier. And this is a volcano. This is an active volcano. It says here that there was an earthquake. It was only a 0.4 that happened yesterday on 8/4, and it was 0.2 miles deep. Also another earthquake of 0.4 as well too was recorded in the area. A 2.2 was recorded 22.7 miles deep, pretty deep, outside of Olympia. And a 1.7 as well too was recorded in the area. So for some reason, these earthquakes as well too, they don't typically, a lot of times they do, but sometimes these smaller ones, they don't show up on the USGS map. All right, so this is more specific to Mount Rainier. This is the observatory here, and they are reporting earthquake activity in the area. These are small earthquakes, but I think we're seeing aftershocks and rumblings throughout the entire world still happening from this 8.8 that hit last week. All right, that's why we saw 2 earthquakes in New York, 2 different ones. This is big. And now we're seeing earthquakes under Mount Rainier. All right, checking on also Mount Adams, we are not seeing any earthquake activity here. All right, but it's something to keep an eye on, because these are volcanoes that could potentially erupt. Right, so let me know what you guys think down below. Make sure you're getting prepared and getting ready if you're in Hawaii especially. This is expected to most likely not be a severe event in Hawaii, but the activity level is increasing, and we could potentially see something big happen there. All right, there's actually a fire going on right now as well too in Maui. All right, fires are being reported right near Lahaina, so people are on the beach in Lahaina. Let me see if I can get this up for you really quick. And they are seeing fires in Maui, in the same place that we had them before. This is thankfully not a big fire, but it's concerning that we are seeing these brush fires break out again in the same exact area. Right, so something to be concerned about as well too, if you are in this area, is fires. Right, because the island is so small and there's really nowhere to go. Okay, you're trapped on this island. If the fire gets out of control like it did before, people get trapped, people get stuck on the roads. You're kind of just driving in a circle. There's nowhere to go, and if the highways, the roads get clogged up, then it's over. People are abandoning their cars and walking to get out of there. Right, so just make sure you are prepared. If you're in this area, make sure you have a plan. And also something to think about as well too is with these fires, how they a lot of times they are not natural. Okay, but sometimes they are natural. A lot of times it's an accident, sometimes it's not an accident, but sometimes they are natural. And that's because in these areas with volcanic activity especially, and tectonic activity, mountainous regions, when these shifts are happening, these geological shifts, tectonic shifts with the Earth's plate tectonics and the ground itself, there's new openings being formed. There's new pathways being formed for things like lava flows. That's why we're seeing potentially these volcanoes erupting, because there was something blocking the flow before, and I think this earthquake potentially made new pathways for magma flows to form, magma tunnels to form to these volcanoes in Russia. And when things like that happen as well too, there's also a off gassing. So just like you see gas being released from the volcanoes, there's also off gassing happening with the earth itself and with the ground. A lot of times you can't even see it. And there's things like methane off gassing happening when these tectonic shifts are happening. And they release methane from the ground, and methane's extremely flammable. All right, so I think that's also potentially a cause of some of these fires. Not all of them. Some of them are definitely something's going on. Somebody lit it, or it was an accident. But some of them could be explained with methane gas being released from these tectonic and geological events, right? Methane's extremely flammable, and it would take a small spark for something like this to ignite. And a lot of times these fires too, especially in very dense wilderness regions, they're hard to put out even through the winter, like places like Canada, things like that. They have things like zombie fires, quote, zombie fires, where they cannot put them out. And it's potentially because there's a off-gassing happening in this area. And it doesn't really matter how much water you put on it. It's going to continue to burn because it's like a propane tank that's on fire. You just have to let it leak, right? You have to let it burn out and let the propane just leak out of it and the fire burn, because there's no way to put it out, right? I've seen videos of people trying to even shove them underwater and it doesn't work, right? It comes back up, it's still on fire because the propane, it just has to drain out, right? And it's still lit. It doesn't really matter what you do to it, it's still burning. So this could be happening in some parts of the world. It's not an excuse for all these fires we're seeing, but it's a explanation for some of them. And I think we are going to see more of them potentially due to effects like this. So thank you guys. Hope you guys are staying safe, staying prepared, staying stocked up out there. I hope you guys have big blessings for your life and your family. And I hope you have a big old blessed day.